What's up, everybody? Subaru fan here for Mustang Weekly Update number 39 on this Friday. So, what's new with the Mustang? Well, nothing, because, you know, I've had all these press cars recently. I haven't had any time to drive the Mustang, so this is literally the first time I've driven it since you saw in the last Weekly Update video 2 weeks ago where I drove this car. So, yeah, it's not getting out too much, sadly. This is going to end, though. I'm not going to be having millions of press cars left and right forever. So, you know, I think I don't have anything new scheduled after the one that I have this current week that just got delivered today, which is the 2015 Chevrolet SS manual, which is very exciting. And so yeah, that's what I'll be driving the next week. But I want to take this out today just to, you know, I didn't want to have it sit for more than 2 weeks, and so let it stretch its legs a little bit here. But there are a couple new updates. The first thing is I called the dealership in regards to the fuel line recall that was announced like 2 months ago for this car, saying they could, you know, get too hot under the underbody and end up catching on fire or whatever. No one's actually had that happen, but that's what they say the potential threat is. And they said that the parts for that still aren't in, and it looks like they're not going to be in for a while. He said at least not till the end of this month at the earliest. So it seems like by the time they finally get the parts in, it's going to be like fall, where it's not going to be hot anyway. So kind of funny, but my brakes haven't been used in 2 weeks, so they're making a little bit of noise here, just scraping off the rust or whatever that's on them that accumulates. But anyway, so that's that as far as the whole thing with the recall, and so just waiting on that. The other, though, exciting thing is that I just had a couple parts arrive this week from Steeda, and so they, you know, have been doing really good stuff for the Mustangs for years, and so I'm working together with them to show off a couple of the cool parts they have for the 2015s, and so the stuff that I'll be installing eventually is going to be the independent rear suspension subframe support bushing system, because basically this independent rear suspension is really good for handling, but in straight line applications it still has wheel hop, and that's something that's not really desirable because it decreases your traction. And I noticed that especially in the wintertime when I was driving in the snow, the wheel hop was crazy, and so this these bushings kind of fill the void and will help to eliminate some of that wheel hop. Actually, most of the wheel hop. I think they said between the two things that I'm doing, it's going to eliminate, I think, at least 70 to 80% of wheel hop. Some people say it completely gets rid of all the wheel hop altogether, so we'll just have to wait and see. But so that'll be cool, and I'll be doing a review of that. I won't be physically installing those parts myself because they're a little bit more advanced than I'm used to doing, and I don't have all the tools necessary. I don't have actually a jack or all that kind of stuff to properly support the car and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just going to let a really cool shop nearby do it for me. I'll still be having them and myself also will be documenting the whole install process, so it'll still be a helpful video for those of you that are wanting to learn how to install these things. So I'll be doing that. Looks like I probably won't be able to get those installed for at least 2 weeks though, so it'll be a little while, but yeah, those parts you now know are there. I got other stuff on the way too, and so that stuff will all be arriving sometime in September from one of the other companies that I'm working with, and that'll be all very exciting as well. So, but yeah, that's it as far as the parts on the Mustang. The only other thing is, since I haven't touched this car in 2 weeks, I still haven't replaced the inspection stickers that, you know, after I got the windshield replaced, you know, they can't swap the inspection stickers over, so I have to get some new ones reissued, and you just show them your old ones and they'll reissue you some new ones. So I just need to do that. I just haven't gotten around to it because the car hasn't left the garage, so there's been no need to update them. But, you know, since after the SS leaves, I'll be driving this every day again. I definitely need to make sure I get that taken care of, so that's something that I definitely plan on doing. So that's it though as far as all the updates on the Mustang, so I'll send it back to me at the news desk for this week's news. Right, for this week's news, the first thing is a story that I read on Motor Authority that scared the crap out of me, and that is that there's a report here saying that the Dodge SRT Hellcats and Hemis could die in 2019. Now, I know that sounds a long way off, but it's really scary simply because it makes a lot of sense, and it's something that is kind of signaled a change of the times that may be happening here soon. I could probably rant about this for an hour straight, so I'll try and keep it brief. But basically, you know, there's the new CAF standards that They're the requirements that the government here in America is enacting that I believe start going into effect in 2017. And it could mean that a lot of V8s are going to die. And this is something we've kind of known about already, but we weren't really sure how it would materialize or what would really happen. Basically, there's going to be large fines placed on these car manufacturers if they don't meet the average MPG that's required for them, and that's why there's all these, you know, hybrids coming out and people scrambling to make fuel-efficient vehicles. This is why, because even though gas is super cheap right now, everyone's looking to build these cars because they know that even if gas prices stay cheap, they're going to have to conform with the government regulations, which you know, that's a whole another debate as far as the whole government regulations that I'm going to try and not get political here, but it really sucks for the muscle car and for general performance vehicles that aren't exotics, because exotics, Lamborghini will keep putting V12s in, and that fine that the US government will fine Lamborghini for, they'll just wrap that into the price of the car, and so you'll pay an extra however many $1,000s to kind of compensate for that. But the stuff like the Hellcats and the Hemis that are, you know, somewhat cheaper, you know, 65 grand and less, that kind of stuff, they're like, well, we can't, you know, make the car be $10,000 or $15,000 more expensive, although I argue that they could. Anyway, I'm already starting to rant. But what this article is saying here is that the V8s are going to die in 2019 and be replaced by turbocharged 4-cylinders and 6-cylinders. So your new Challenger could end up sounding a whole lot more like the Alfa Romeos and Fiat Abarths than they do the snarling V8s that they currently are. So this is not fact. This isn't confirmed by Chrysler or anything. This is speculation, but this is what insiders have heard and this, that, and the other. And it makes a whole lot of sense, which is why I think it's probably true and really scary. So I've said many, many times before in these weekly updates that we truly live in a golden era of cars right now with 700 horsepower stuff from the factory for 65 grand and all this kind of stuff. This is basically the 60s all over again, and the stuff that's about to happen in 4 or 5 years from now, that's the 70s of the gas crunch and everything. We're going through this whole thing again, and we may not see these kind of vehicles again after, you know, the next 4 or 5 years. So we might not see them again for another 40 years, or until people chill out about, you know, the fuel and all that kind of stuff, and, you know, maybe the government will find different ways to regulate things. I don't know what will happen. But sadly, these affordable performance vehicles with V8s look like they're going to die, which is why a lot of people are worried about the Mustang GT losing its V8 in favor of a EcoBoost 6-cylinder down the road, you know, in 5 years' time or whatever. Who knows? It'll be real interesting to see. But if you have any available funds to buy a Hellcat or other Hemi Dodge in the next 4 or 5 years here, I would go ahead and buy one. Maybe buy two, throw one in a warehouse with 0 miles on it, because these are certainly going to be collector's items, you know, down the road if these end up getting killed off. But anyway, lots of news to cover this week, so I will not rant. Maybe I'll do a separate video and discuss this more in detail, but that really got me all wound up whenever I read that. Anyway, something gets me wound up in a good way. Ford officially this week announced their upgrade kit for the Focus ST that takes it to 275 horsepower and 296 pound-feet of torque, which is a nice boost of around 25 horsepower over the stock car. And it basically consists of an intake, an intercooler, and an exhaust, as well as obviously a retune. And the great thing about it is it retains the Ford factory warranty. So you can have your cake and eat it too, which is great. Now, this isn't cheap though, but I mean, these parts are normally expensive, so I wouldn't say this is any more expensive than buying all these parts in the aftermarket, but it's $1,900 on the Ford Performance website, and so that's pretty cool that they're offering that. And like we said, probably 6 months ago, Ford has the same plans for the EcoBoost Mustang. It's just a matter of time as to when those actually come out, but that's very cool that they're offering these upgrade kits. One beautiful car that was debuted over this past week is a Mercedes-Benz C-Class Coupe. Now, we already saw a few images of it. Last week I talked about it, and it looks great. It's one of the most beautiful cars Mercedes made. But this past week they debuted the 503 horsepower Mercedes-AMG C63 Coupe. And it looks just as great as the regular C Coupe, but even better, more aggressive. And, you know, it looks basically a lot like the sedan version, especially in the front. but looks awesome, and you know, it's going to be one heck of a performer. They're saying that 0 to 60 could take between 3.9 and 3.8 seconds. Now, the 503 horsepower that's quoted is for the C63S, which is the higher performing version. They're also going to have a regular C63 with 469 horsepower, and that only is 0.1 seconds slower 0 to 60, so that might be the bargain proposition here. And either way, you can't go wrong. They're both sweet looking. And speaking of other sweet looking Mercedes, they just previewed a little teaser image of a computer generated image of the new S-Class convertible, which looks exactly how you expected it to look from all the spy shots, and looks just as great as well. So lots of beautiful stuff coming out from Mercedes recently. Interesting news over at BMW. The first is that there's a report here saying that the next BMW M3 sedan is going to be a plug-in hybrid. Again, like I mentioned with the whole Hellcat thing, everyone's going to more fuel-efficient stuff. And it looks like they're not stopping with just twin-turbo V6s. Now they're also doing this plug-in hybrid. Now, the new M3 isn't supposed to come out for another 3 or 4 years, so we have a while. But when it does come out, they say it's going to use a Keras-type system to deliver some extra power and have that extra boost, which is very cool. You know, it's the same technology we see in all the hypercars these days, and it'll be making its way down, and that's very cool. But should probably end up making the car heavier. I mean, they're going to, I'm sure, use more carbon fiber to combat the added weight of the batteries and the hybrid system, but still doesn't sound like the new M3 is going to be getting any lighter. So that's interesting to see. Other BMW news that's official is they officially introduced the concept version of the M4 GTS at Pebble Beach this past weekend, and looks really sweet and has some really cool technology. So it has OLED taillights in the back now that look very cool and preview probably what the future is going to look like for BMW taillights. And in addition to that, this also has that water injection system that they've been talking about using in the 1 Series. I talked about that a few weeks ago. That just basically lowers the compression temperatures in the combustion chamber, and it just allows it to run better and hotter, and therefore be more powerful. So very cool to see that, and it's just a concept, but I'm sure we'll see an M4 GTS eventually, probably in a year or two as the car is nearing the end of its life, and so very cool to see that. Another thing that's very cool to see is the F-Type SVR that's been lapping the Nürburgring. Well, there's a new one that's lapping, and it's convertible. So this shows us that we're also going to get a convertible along with the hardtop version of the SVR of the F-Type. We're hearing it's going to have 600 horsepower, which is absolutely crazy. So great to see that, and hopefully it comes out soon. In other hybrid and electric news, Audi just teased the new all-electric Sporty SUV that they're bringing to the Frankfurt Motor Show next month, and it's obviously going to be designed to combat the Tesla Model X, which is supposed to be coming out very soon as well, which is, of course, all-electric SUV. So, it's going to be interesting to see. These teaser images give us a pretty good idea of what it's going to look like. It'll be interesting to hear, what kind of power it's going to have, and if they plan to make it pretty soon. But interesting to see that. Other Tesla fighting news. I don't know why everyone all of a sudden wants to make electric cars, but I guess it's because of these fuel economy standards. But the next report here is saying that Aston Martin is planning to build a Tesla fighting 800 horsepower electric version of the Aston Martin Rapide. And the Rapide is a beautiful car, and I think very underrated, and no one ever buys them, sadly. But if you make an 800 horsepower electric version, you may get a few more customers. So interesting to hear that. And they said it would have a 200-mile range. It's, of course, they said going to be between $200,000 and $250,000. So definitely a lot more expensive than a Tesla, but you're dealing with more power as well. So that could be the new electric car for the really rich, and cool to see that. And something that's a lot cheaper and less exciting, the new Toyota Prius is also going to be shown here. September 8th is when they're unveiling the new version, and it's going to be debuted in Vegas for whatever reason, and September 8th we'll see the new Prius. I'm sure lots of people are giddy about that one. And then for something more exciting again, there's some new spy shots of the new Porsche 911 Turbo running around that has some new bumpers in the front and the rear. It's the same Mark II that has very slight differences that we've seen in the other versions of the 911, and the Boxster and Cayman also getting their mild exterior refreshes. And so we just have a few pictures of it here. Porsche, they're funny. They don't even bother camouflaging anymore. There is some misleading tape around the taillights and headlights a little bit, but otherwise it's all out there. They're like, whatever. So there's such minor differences that maybe they think people won't notice. but it's definitely the new version, and cool to see it running around. Another car that's been running around the Nürburgring is the Audi R8 Spyder. Now, we just have seen the new R8, which is slowly trickling out here, but the Spyder version we haven't seen official pictures of yet, and as you would expect, it looks exactly how you would expect it to look. Soft top, very similar to the previous generation, so that's great to see that they're returning it with a Spyder version, which means maybe we'll see a Huracan Roadster sooner rather than later as well, so great to see that. Other supercar news is Ferrari is celebrating Singapore's independence with a special version of the F12. It's just a one-off model that has actually been commissioned, and it has the white wheels and the white stripes and accents. It's essentially just a specially ordered F12 that's a little unique from the rest, and looks good. Can't wait for the high-performance version of the F12 that we'll be seeing either at Geneva next year or possibly sometime this year. Who knows? But cool to see that special edition in the meantime. Something interesting now, just a week or two ago, I was just talking about how Toyota is going to be making some kind of crossover. They want to be in the same arena as all the other subcompact crossovers, and so Toyota is making this new one. But the interesting thing is they said they're actually going to bring it as a Scion. Even though most people have kind of given up on Scion, I think they want to try and bring this in to refresh it, and this way it'll have a youthful image by it being a Scion. And they said it's going to be, its main target is the Nissan Juke. So it could be a little funky looking as well, like Scions like to do. And it's just heavily camouflaged here. So all we can tell is that it's going to be boxy, probably, and it looks like it could have a very aggressive front end, similar to the IM that we just recently saw that was revealed. And so interesting to see that. Another thing is Hyundai teased the next generation Elantra by showing us a sketch of it. It looks like a very handsome little car, and so it should be a hot seller once they decide to make it. Another interesting story is there's some spy shots this week of Volkswagen's Tiguan Coupe R. So basically what we've been hearing is that they're going to be doing a new version of Tiguan, of course, and they're going to do a third row passenger version. They're also going to be doing a more racier, crossover that is like the Sport Coupe, kind of like the BMW X4 and those kind of things, where they totally get rid of all the usefulness of the hatch and just make it more of a sleeker profile. And they're going to be having an R version of that, is what we're hearing. And so we have a camouflage something here that is from Volkswagen, and cool to see that. Who knows how much power it's going to have. Probably be the same as the regular Golf R. And for some more, there's a bunch more stories here from the whole Pebble Beach show this past weekend, where a lot of people were showing off their new cars and whatnot. And the first is the Galpin-Fisker Rocket. We already saw that many, many months ago in hardtop form. Now we see the Roadster, which is pretty interesting looking. Kind of deletes the rear seat by having a little cover, clamshell cover over the rear, and otherwise looks exactly like the other Rocket. I'm still not a fan of them. I know some people are like drooling over these things. I think they look kind of weird, honestly, but to each their own. And so who knows when that'll actually be available, but cool to see them tinkering with them and bringing out new versions. Some bad news this week. Well, it's good and bad. So the first thing is we learned that the Acura NSX is going to have a Cosworth block. Now Cosworth, if you know anything about them, they make some really good race engines and really good engines in general. They're some of the best out there. And so they're the ones building the block for the new NSX, which means one, it should be a phenomenal engine straight out of the factory, and two, it should have tons of potential probably. So that's awesome to hear. But the sad thing is people that want an NSX are going to be waiting a while because the production has been delayed yet again. So apparently, midway through the whole development cycle of the NSX, they decided to move the engine from, one position to another. I think it was latitudinally arranged before, now it's longitudinally arranged. So they moved it in the engine base. That threw everything for a loop and made everything all weird. So they're still trying to catch up with all those changes and whatnot. So the production has been delayed. They said they're in trial production right now, but they're not actually going to start building them until the spring now. They were supposed to start building them back in November, I think, is what the plans were originally, or sometime in the fall. And so now it's not until the spring. But, what's another 6 months when everyone's been waiting so long at this point already? So that's that, and can't wait to see them finally on the streets. Some other exotic car news is at Monterey, Lamborghini showed off the 750 SV Roadster version of the Aventador like we all were expecting. Looks great in this nice shade of blue. And, you know, like I said, no surprises there. It's just the same car with the roof off. So great to see that. Some other interesting Lamborghini news, though, is remember how they said they were going to be showing a hypercar that's really exclusive like the Veneno to some people at this Pebble Beach, some of the, you know, private little gathering they were going to show to a few people. Well, no one leaked anything, at least that I have seen yet, so good job with Lamborghini of confiscating everyone's cell phones or whatever. But this one-off Lamborghini supercar is going to be making its public debut now at Geneva, is what has been confirmed. So they'll be showing it off at Geneva. They're saying that Road & Track is suggesting it's going to have a hybrid power plant. They kind of want to fight the whole LaFerrari and McLaren P1 kind of deal, which will be interesting. Now, this would be much limited production and a lot more rare than those 3 hypercars, but should still be a very impressive vehicle for the, you know, handful of people that are allowed to buy them. And so great to see that, and can't wait for Geneva to see what it looks like. And the last couple of stories here, also at Pebble Beach, I mentioned last week that Lexus was planning on unveiling 2 refreshes of current cars. The first is the 2016 Lexus Lx570, which actually looks pretty good, I'd say. And so that's very sharp. They also unveiled the 2016 Lexus GS, which is getting a refresh here. It looks good as well, I will say. It takes a lot of cues from the GSF. And they're also going to make available the 2.0-liter turbo engine in the regular GS, and it's going to be rear-wheel drive as well, which is great, and has some improvements on the interior as well. So that's great to see. And lastly is that it accidentally leaked out what we think is an actual photograph of the 2017 Ford Fusion, which is getting a refresh as well, and looks pretty good. And so yeah, that's it for all the news this week, guys. So send it back to me in the car.
Alrighty, so I'll do a nice little acceleration here to end the video like I always do. Woo. Yep, it's quick, it's still very fast. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next week. Take care.